Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Taya Brown. I'm a business consultant here at the Temple SBDC. The Temple SBDC is a part of a nationally accredited program of a thousand networks across the United States. You are joining us for Intro to AI for your small business. This session is being recorded, and we'll send over the follow-up materials in a email. And our presenter today will be Isabel Chrome.
Thanks, Taya. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning for Intro to AI for your small business. And as you've heard, this is a little bit about the SBDC here at Temple. Proud to be part of that nationally accredited network of small business development centers. Some of our key partners. If you are not joining us from the Philadelphia area and you'd like to know where your local SBDC is, here's a map of our network here in Pennsylvania. There's an SBDC that serves every zip code in the US. So even if you're not in Pennsylvania, if you're not in Philadelphia, there's an SBDC near you. A little bit about what we do here at the SBDC. We offer no-cost small business consulting. It's kind of our signature offering. If you're interested in that, there's a QR code on the screen you can scan to sign up for our no-cost business consulting. You can also email us at sbdc@temple.edu, and we'll make sure you get a link to schedule some time to talk to one of our consultants if indeed you are in our geographic footprint. If not, there are lots of great consultants in our network, and you'll be in good hands with whichever SBDC you connect with. Just realizing that my next slide has some pretty outdated programs listed, but we also have a bunch of resources and training programs. You can scan that QR code to sign up to look at our upcoming webinars. I've got some really great ones coming up this fall. We're really excited about them. The dates on this one are from this past winter and spring, the last time we offered this webinar session, so I apologize for that belated that overdue change. That said, I think we are offering that first step series again. We're going to have marketing on a budget again. We're going to do a working capital webinar this October. And we have a Boost session that's active right now. Boost is our business training class for entrepreneurs who are looking for support scaling their business. If you're in your first year of business and you want to scale up, grow in some way, check out our Boost class. It's really wonderful. It's a fantastic class designed to help you think about how to sustainably grow your operations. We also have a digital marketing bootcamp that's starting up. So if you're thinking about marketing, maybe that's one of the places you want to use AI. Check out our webinar calendar for that. And here's another QR code to get there and what it's going to look like when you arrive at our webinar calendar. And then a little bit about me, and then we'll be done with housekeeping. I joined the SBDC in 2021. Before that, I worked for the Women's Business Enterprise Center, running the Women's Business Center. And before that, I had my own small business. I am our center's AI specialist. I just completed a research project on AI implementation that was funded by the Association of Small Business Development Centers. And I've been working with small businesses on implementing AI for probably 3 years now, maybe 4. And I'm really happy to be talking about this topic today. Here's my objectives for our session today. Here's what I'm hoping we'll achieve in the next hour and a half. And I want to just run, are we in an hour and a half or an hour? I think it's an hour and a half. I also just want to run a quick poll. I'm curious to know, if you're here, how familiar are you with AI? So if you wouldn't mind just taking a second and answering this question, it helps give me a sense of who we have in the room. There's no wrong answer here. I've designed the presentation to be suitable for an audience that's looking for a basic overview and introduction targeted at entrepreneurship and running a small business. But if you are a power user, I always have a couple join this one, and I love that. You're very welcome. Again, there's not a wrong answer to this question. Just curious who's here. I apologize if that box just showed up. All right, so many of you have answered. I'll leave that on the screen for just 1 second longer, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. Perfect. Okay. And if you're curious who else is here, here's the mix. Got a nice mix today. We've got a few people who are using it regularly, power users, and some folks who are totally new. So it's a wonderful mix. So again, the goal today is to give you a sense of the essentials of what power is, both generative and agentic AI. talk about some risks around AI usage that small business owners should be aware of, and how to mitigate those risks, how to make them a little bit less risky for you. And we are also going to be talking about agentic AI, which is the new wave of AI that's hitting us, or that's been hitting us for a little while, and when those autonomous workflows might make sense for your business. And I hope that you'll leave with at least one viable use case for you. Speaking of you and your company, curious to know how many of you are in business. So just if you wouldn't mind, one more poll, and then I promise I'll stop asking you about yourselves and start getting into the content. While you're answering that poll, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. So to keep the kind of background noise and interruptions to a minimum, this is webinar style, which means you are joined in listen only mode. That does not mean I don't want your questions. I love when there's conversation, when there's questions, when there's even dialogue in the chat between folks. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Thank you for getting us started, Angelina. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. If you are hearing me say things that don't make sense to you, I want questions. If I'm speaking too quickly, I want to know. If you have a comment or a story, or just want to introduce your business, feel free to do so in the chat. We do have the Q&A function, which is nice. It helps people who are watching the recording back find answers to the questions that you've asked. So you can feel free to use that question and answer function, or you can drop your questions right into the chat. Either way, great with me. I want your questions and I want your comments as we go along. Okay, so thank you all for your responses on the poll. Looks like we've got most of you in the room to answer about your business status. I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll so we can get started at getting into the topic. Uh, all right, so, okay, we have a nice mix. A lot of owners of established businesses, a lot of owners of recently opened businesses, and a few folks who are just interested in kind of being here to learn about the topic. And I love this comment that AI is essential for business. I really agree. I think, and that's where I want to start is why should you care about this topic? And I gather most of you know this answer and are with me on why this topic matters. But just in case you're not, let's make a case for why this all matters. So the opportunity, right? Most of the small business owners, if you ask people, are using AI-enabled tools or straight, AI platforms like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, some of the other LLMs. But even if you're not on those platforms, you're likely using some kind of an app, a platform, a piece of software that has AI enabled, like Canva has the AI designer. Google has AI-powered responses to searches. QuickBooks has AI-powered expense categorization. Microsoft Office has Copilot built in. You are probably using AI-enabled tools. 58% of small business owners that are surveyed versus say that you're using generative AI, and I'll talk about that distinction in a moment, which is up from 40% from 2024. That number is from 2025, so we don't have survey data for this year yet, but we expect to see that curve increase. 96% plan to adopt emerging technologies like AI if they're not using them already. Employees who use AI see big changes in revenue growth, wage growth, and they also see their skills evolve more quickly. Using AI to learn about other topics is one of the great ways to use it. And a small business survey from 2025 made the case that there's about a triple return on investment on every dollar invested in generative AI. So for every dollar that businesses invest into these technologies, they see triple, 3 times return. So the challenge for small businesses right now is no longer whether AI works. Adoption is growing rapidly. The real challenge, though, is around implementation. It's around training staff, protecting your and your customers' data, integrating AI into how you work so that it doesn't just sit on top of existing workflows, but it's really integrated into your systems to give you the most benefit for productivity and efficiency. And navigating an evolving regulatory environment. We don't know what AI regulation may come down the pike. And if you've been following the news, you can see that a lot of these AI companies and a lot of employees at these large AI companies are now themselves calling for some regulatory oversight due to some recent headlines. Um, but, you know, 65% of small business owners are concerned that privacy regulations and AI could increase compliance and legal costs. Um, Many AI adopting small businesses cite data privacy and security concerns. And what I hear a lot from small business owners is figuring out how to really make AI fit into their daily day-to-day workflows, and not just, you know, I'll ask ChatGPT to help me draft an email, but how do I actually, you know, implement an AI agent to help me automate certain processes? What should I automate first? How do I make sure that those automated processes don't impact the quality or of my customer service or of my product or service that I sell? And a lot of business leaders are saying that workforce skill gaps are remaining a primary barrier to AI adoption. And that's, I think, a challenge that is solvable with good training that's role specific, but it's a challenge that nevertheless remains. I'm going to do a quick demo just because there are a couple of you who have not used AI tools. So I'm going to change over my screen sharing, which is risky. I'm going to try to do this and bring up um, just ChatGPT, because I think it's one of the more widely known of these technologies. And I want to just show you quickly what AI can do. I'm going to start with a pretty basic demo, and they're very easy to use. These large language models are really just about, you know, you talk to them like you would. Talk to anything. So I'm going to start with a bad prompt, and then I'm going to do a good prompt. Okay, help me write a social media post about my new product. Anybody got a product idea? I'll take a wacky one if you've got one. Um, let's see. So I've given it no details. I've asked for something and I've told it nothing about what I'm trying to do. So this is an example of not a great prompt, right? So chat tells me, I can't do that. Tell me who the product is for. But let's say I give it a little bit more data. Uh, a pair of earrings shaped like kittens. I got cats in the brain today. Let's see what it's gonna do. So again, I'm not giving it a lot. I'm not giving a lot of detail. Let's see what it does without a lot of detail. And then I'll run a slightly more specific prompt that gives these kinds of details. Because again, uh, it wants there to be a little more. Hmm. Okay, I think we're breaking. I think ChatGPT is like, you didn't give me anything I need. Let's do a better prompt. Okay, so I'm going to tell it who I am and what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to say I'm a small jewelry shop in Philadelphia. Always more fun to type when people are watching. And what about me? What makes me different? Specializing in sustainable handmade necklaces using recycled and sustainably sourced materials. To act like I can type. Typos don't really matter. It'll read it through the typos. Just launched a new line of minimalist necklaces with birthstone pendants. My target audience is professional women 28 to 45 who care about environmental impact, buy gifts for friends. And I want to be specific about what I'm looking for as well, right? 2 to 3 engaging Instagram post options, because it might write a different caption for a different platform. That would appeal to this audience. And then I'm going to note about what the tone I want. So tone should be warm, but professional, not too casual. And now it's going to think really hard about this. I noticed there's a couple of typos. It won't make a big difference. Having too hard a time. I could open a different AI and go to Copilot. ChatGPT being so slow this morning. Switching gears. And forgive me, I have 1,000 tabs open. It's lifestyle, but I'm going to go into Copilot just because this seems to be, ChatGPT seems to be being extra slow today. Might be a issue with our account. Let me switch over. Work in Copilot for a second. Putting just the exact same prompt in. And it's giving me a nice idea for post with some pre-made, hashtags there. I've got a couple of different options. And let's say, for the same business and target audience, make me a posting schedule for the next week on Instagram and Facebook. And you can see also that it's going to remember the context I gave it before. So it's going to remember the audience I'm going after, the kind of business I'm in. And it's going to tell me, okay, here's what you should be doing. Here's the theme for the week or the day. And here's the interaction prompt and the post type on those two different platforms. And it's giving me ideas for what to post and not just the kind of text post that I asked it for, the caption idea that I asked it for. And it's giving me senses of when to post for this audience I'm trying to get with and what to do behind the scenes and the content mix. So it's giving me a nice plan. And it was better, right, because I gave it more details. And the kind of discipline that is around how to ask for what you need and how much detail, how little detail to give. It's called prompt engineering. And the text I put in is called a prompt. And ChatGPT is still thinking about this. I don't know what's going on with chat. Odd. Anyway, so that was the demo. The second AI site that I used was Copilot, which is the Microsoft large language model. So I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of overview into how AI works. And so I want to start by talking about what AI is not. And this slide is, again, a little dated considering the headlines that broke in July. But it's not, if you've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, no one's going to keep you from opening those pod bay doors. It's not an entity with feelings, knowledge, or common sense. We, for a long time, thought that AI had no autonomy. Agentic AI has changed that, and some of the more advanced AI models do seem to be engaging in behavior that is not what we've been asking them to do. You may have seen headlines about AI is going rogue. It's been a very interesting story to follow for folks in the field. But AI is also not magic. At the end of the day, it is a capability that was developed by people, and we are learning more and more about how it works every day. It's also not free of cost. Every prompt that you put in carries a cost in computing power. And depending on what you're looking for and how complex your prompt is, that cost could be higher or lower. And it's also not a replacement for human decision making, as tempting as it can be to use it that way. Talk about the importance of that. It's also, agentic AI is not a set and forget solution. It's not, in an ideal world, something that if you have an AI agent that handles customer service, that does not mean that you should let that AI agent, operate autonomously and independently forever, right from the jump. AI agents earn their autonomy by producing good quality work in the same way that employees earn their autonomy by producing good quality work. Okay, so what is, I've been using a lot of terminology, agentic AI, generative AI. I want to just explain a little bit. AI fundamentally is the science of creating machines capable of performing tasks that would typically require human intelligence. And this concept is not new, dates back to the 1950s, arguably earlier. Ada Lovelace was doing, was trying to create artificial intelligence and, the Industrial Revolution. Early AI in the 50s relied on really rule-based systems where every scenario and response were mapped out. Think of them like decision trees. Humans coded in rules like, if X happens, then do Y. And we see these big changes in the 80s as machine learning came onto the scene, which was the goal of helping computers learn from data rather than relying on pre-programmed rules. Machine learning is really the advancement that makes all AI possible. So instead of explicitly telling a system how to recognize patterns, machine learning algorithms are trained on large data sets and develop their own methods for identifying trends and making predictions. Now, this shift was revolutionary. Um, it changed everything. It enabled systems to improve over time and to adapt to new information. And that made applications like spam filters, recommendation engines, and speech recognition become possible thanks to machine learning. So I think a lot of us think about AI coming onto the scene, when ChatGPT launched in 2021 in October. But really, if you've used a prediction, if you've, clicked on a recommended video or listened to a Spotify recommendation or clicked on a Netflix recommendation, those recommendation engines are powered by AI. Siri's natural speech processing is powered by AI. Another major breakthrough in machine learning came with neural networks, which I think was, the early aughts, early teens, late aughts. And these are algorithms that are inspired by the structure of the human brain. So neural networks consist of layers of interconnected nodes or neurons, and they process information by mimicking how neurons in your brain communicate. They were conceptualized in the 40s and 50s, but they didn't really become possible to create until the 2000s because we didn't have the computing power and the data availability to really create them. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and that builds on neural networks by using many layers to analyze complex data. And that's the technology that allows image recognition and natural language processing to exist. Question here. Are certain AI sites better for certain business functions like social planning, spreadsheets, and data? It's an interesting question. I think a lot of the big ones you'll find people who have strong preferences about them in the same way that you'll find people who have strong preferences about like Sheets versus Excel for spreadsheets. I think it's user preference. I use a lot of them interchangeably. We can talk about the differences between them. I find Claude gives me a little bit better at analysis. I think ChatGPT does a better job of sourcing things from the internet, and I like it better for things like research overviews with sources cited. For a lot of working in programs, I like Claude, the Claude desktop integration that just connects with a lot of the platforms that you already use. If you're in a Microsoft world, I think Copilot does the same thing. If you're a Google ecosystem, Gemini is great for kind of working in the programs you're already working in. So I mean, but they're very similar in their capacity because all of those are generative AIs. So generative AI is an AI algorithm that comes pre-trained, GPT, generative pre-trained, and think of them as like supercharged autocomplete. They create something new based on patterns that the AI model has observed in its training data, and they're called generative because they involve creating new content like text, images, music, or video based on patterns they've learned from existing data. And that's probably what you're thinking of if you think of AI. You're thinking of ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Copilot. Those are all generative AI, or what we call large language models. And they're a little bit different from traditional AI. So like um, visual sorting and technology is not generative AI. It's AI, but it's not generative AI. Um, Machine learning algorithms are part of generative AI, but they're a little bit different as well. So you can have non-generative AI use cases for especially like heavy industry or manufacturing, whereas the large language models, which is most of what we're talking about today, are generative AI, meaning that they are used to create new content based on their training data and the information that you give them in your prompts. Now, agentic AI, which is what we're seeing the emergence of in the last year or two, is where things get really interesting, I think, for a lot of small businesses. Agentic AI takes everything that we've learned from generative AI and adds the ability to act autonomously within parameters that the AI agents are given. Where generative AI is reactive in response to prompts, agentic AI systems can set and pursue goals independently. They can plan multi-step sequences of actions without waiting for your input or prompting between each step. They can access and use tools like your email, your calendar, your databases, your business apps, web search, and more when you grant them access. They can make decisions within parameters that you define, and they can come and seek your feedback if that's the parameters that you've given them, and they can learn and improve from that feedback and the outcomes that it produces. So if you think of like generative AI as like an enthusiastic intern that you ask questions and give assignments to, agentic AI is more like hiring someone to actually run a process. They function a little bit closer to employees in your business. They work autonomously on your behalf, but you still set their boundaries. You still monitor their work, and you still step in, or a human steps in if something goes wrong. So recap of that section, machine learning is the engine. Generative AI are the tools that you probably are experimenting with. Agentic AI is the wave that will most likely shape the way that we work the most, especially as small businesses, in the next few years. Uh, so I'm going to switch over to, okay, there's multiple kinds of AI platforms. We are going to focus the remainder of our presentation largely on LLMs. But before we do, a couple of examples for other generative AI types. So LLMs are text-based AI, large language models. You also have image-based, and a lot of these large AI platforms, ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, are also image-based or even code-based. But there's also natural speech AI tools that can read a script and sound like a voice actor. I'm sure, heard these on whatever your preferred short-term video site, short-form video site. They're all over these, AI natural speech tools. There are code-based generative AI tools that create code. Claude Code is kind of the big one. Music-based generative AI that can create soundtracks for video content or audio content. And there's also, as we said, AI-powered features in existing platforms. Grammarly, Canva, email may have generative AI integrated into it. And there's also non-generative AI, so visual sorting, categorization, those kinds of use cases. And finally, AI agents, that we just talked about. And it's really fascinating also to see where you can stack these. So let's say you want to use Google VO3 to create a video. You can use ChatGPT to help you craft the prompt that's detailed enough to get you the video that you're looking for. Or you can write the speech that the natural speech AI platform will write the talk track with Claude and use your favorite AI speech tool to read the caption on the content that you post. So I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities in stacking these platforms. But let's talk briefly about what you can do with LLMs, not just what they are and how they work. You can use them for things like marketing, customer service, content creation, automating administrative functions in your business. Basic analytics and insight, you can kind of train your own AI advisor by giving an AI tool a lot of information about your business and how you work, so that it knows you really well and it can give you better quality feedback and ideas. In the contracting space, you can use it for reviewing and analyzing RFPs, which can often be very lengthy. You want to read that yourself if it's an RFP you're going to respond to. But if you're just looking at like, hey, go or no go, should I apply for this or not? An AI tool is a great way to kind of quickly review that long document. And you can also use it to kind of outline or punch up proposals. And in content creation, I think right now we're thinking about the potential customer backlash of using really obviously AI generated images in your content, but I think creating videos, narration, captions, and occasionally also AI generated images can be a very powerful thing for a small business that's struggling to get that marketing dollar to go a little further. I like it a lot for operations, scheduling, and other logistics using custom trained AI or out of the box tools. I think can be really cool. For agentic AI, you can use it for all kinds of things, marketing, lead qualification and nurturing. Some of those kind of initial steps of nurturing initial leads can be done. You kind of like a super powered drip marketing campaign almost. You can use it for customer service by having a 24/7 agent that handles really your most routine inquiries and then escalates anything more complex. Administrative automation, you can use it to help manage your inbox, which I don't know a single business owner who isn't struggling to keep their inbox under control. For scheduling, for invoice processing, for operations, you can use it for things like inventory monitoring and reordering, resource scheduling. For analytics, there's tons of use cases for AI, but one big one would be continuous monitoring of certain KPIs and generating alerts when things fall, when things hit certain thresholds. And process automation. So if there's any kind of routine workflow that doesn't require a lot of thought or decision making, could potentially be automated. So report generation, invoice processing, data entry, that kind of thing. There's a great question in the chat here. Do I have any experience using any type of AI agent in my work or my business? So our systems, that our AI policy here at the Pennsylvania SBDC network is that we only use AI tools that have been paid for by our host institutions or by the network. And AI agents, there's no agentic AI that has a free tier that's robust enough for us right now. So we're using Claude Cowork for some things, but beyond that, and I've done some automations in my personal life, and I've certainly supported businesses that are working with agentic AI platforms on implementation. I don't directly have an AI agent that I use on the day-to-day in my work, but I've worked with a number of businesses on designing workflows and setting these up, setting up the parameters around AI agents. So yes and no is the answer to that question. So large language models, again, we talked about this a little bit. Think of them as like enthusiastic interns. They have a lot of academic and theoretical information, but they don't have any insight into your business beyond what you give them as you prompt them. They don't really know anything, right? They get the content right when they have lots of relevant training. Um, and when you give them enough information to make something that's useful to you, but they don't have common sense, they don't have experience. They're optimized to make content that looks right, but they should really be double checked. There are two components of the model that matter to its usability. There's the model or the algorithm itself, and there are, if you get into this, there are sites where you can buy your own AI model and then train it on your own data. So there's two components, the model, which is the algorithm that powers this whole thing, and then there's the data set, the training data that it's trained on. And ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, all of these are models and data sets that have been trained, and that's what you're using, is those two things combined. And they're really great at some things. The more common a topic is in the training data, the more likely an AI is to produce a quality output. They're made to understand natural language, so they're easy to interact with. You can give them prompts, you can type them in, you can talk right into the model and with a lot of these, and they produce outputs. Sometimes those are just text, sometimes they're documents, sometimes they're images, depending on what you're asking for. And you can, and I think should, in your prompt, specify what the output is that you're looking for. And then you're involved. You're that final step, the human in the loop. You ask for any changes that you need, you edit, you proofread, you copy edit, you make sure that it's right. And then agentic AI, we talked about this a little bit, operate more autonomously, but they still require clear guardrails, constraints. Here's where you have to come back and have me approve. You can write the social media content, but I want to review it before it gets posted. Or you can post to our Instagram, but I want to review what gets posted to our LinkedIn. You can set parameters, right? And as those AI agents become better and learn from your feedback, you can make them a little bit more autonomous, just the same way that you would an employee that you're onboarding and training. Once they've earned that, right? You always are going to have human oversight for critical decisions, and you as the business owner have to decide what those boundaries and what those touch points are. And how do you handle exceptions? So all of this is stuff that I here at the SBDC or my colleagues can support you with. And if you're interested in more about, where and how to implement agentic AI, I really recommend. I did an implementation focused session a couple of months ago called Strategy First. Maybe that was just a month ago. But the recording is up on our YouTube channel. I talk a little bit more about my recommendations for really how to successfully choose where to start with agentic AI in your business. But again, you configure those agent goals, the tools and access levels they have. It runs autonomously on a schedule, or you say it's triggered by events that you set. You monitor results and refine the configuration accordingly. And that agent learns from your feedback and improves over time. So this is, I was doing a talk track to this one on the last slide. Taya, would you mind, somebody has asked for a link to our YouTube channel. Would you mind sending that link? Okay. I'm gonna do a quick myth busting session. We're about halfway through, so we've got lots of good time for this, and we'll have time for a robust Q&A at the end. So we're I think you by now you probably know some of these, but quick myth busting session. Does AI know everything? You can be a thumbs up for true, a thumbs down for false. AI knows everything. If you've forgotten where the reactions are on uh, uh, chat, you can react by going to your control panels. Okay. Do we have reactions enabled on this? We might not. Okay, put it in the chat. True or false? AI knows everything. False. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else? False. Yeah. Okay. I thought you guys would get this. Yeah. So yeah, knowing isn't really a relevant concept here. It's not sentient. It's only as up to date as the content that it's been trained on and any that you give it. Now, most of these, commercially available LLMs are synced to the broader internet. They're pretty well up to date in their training, but still, they don't know everything. Certainly, they don't know lots of stuff about your business, your marketplace, your customers, your employees. And that's where the context that it's important to give them to get high quality outputs. So ChatGPT is basically Google, true or false? Yeah, yeah. Google exists. ChatGPT is a little different. You can use ChatGPT like Google in the sense that you can say, hey, hey, chat, here's a question, find me an answer. Google already has that function built in. If you're a Google person, I think, that AI assisted search is the tool to use. And ChatGPT also, depending on how you ask it, has been known to hallucinate in those answers. So if you're using ChatGPT like Google, make sure that you ask for sources and make sure that you look at those sources because sometimes they are, and I would, I think for general search purposes, for, unless I'm asking for a specific research question, I still go to Google or DuckDuckGo for that kind of thing. LLMs are bad at basic arithmetic. True or false? Yeah, nice. Okay. Anyone else want to chime in? True or false? LLMs are bad at basic arithmetic. I'm thinking, 4 + 4 is 8 kind of stuff. Yeah, fundamentally, LLMs are designed to work with text, not numbers. Most LLMs, just pure LLMs, are pretty bad at math and counting. And most of the popular, generative AI models that are out there, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, they've been updated with arithmetic engine. So they also have an arithmetic engine built in. They can do math, they can do analytics. But if you're dealing with a pure LLM, or if you think about what ChatGPT was back in 2022, basic math's a bit of a weak spot. And it still will kind of slip up every now and then. So if you're doing analytics work, use an LLM that is specific to, that has that kind of engine built in. And just know that, you can ask, it used to be there was a meme you could fool ChatGPT into miscounting the number of R's in the word strawberry. That has been fixed. That bug has been fixed for years, but basic math can still be a bit of a weak spot. AI will take all of our jobs. True or false? Reasonable people can disagree on the answer to this question, but yeah, true or false? Yeah, all right. So interesting. Lori, I like your take. There have been several recent layoffs attributed to AI implementation, but it will hit different industries at different times. And it will definitely change how we work. I think what's going to be most impacted right now is entry-level jobs, those especially entry-level white-collar jobs. That's the kind of work that your enthusiastic intern is best able to take away from the humans. So what I'm thinking we'll see and what the research I think generally predicts that we'll see is humans leveraging AI assistance and a slightly more challenging early career for entry level white collar workers, especially those who haven't taken the time to build up their own AI skills. Um, AI generated content is easy to spot. True or false? True and false. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, I would say uh, badly generated AI content is easy to spot. Um, I can tell, for instance, I have kids in school. I can always tell when a teacher has used an AI to design a flyer for a school event. You know, that kind of cartoonish style is really visible, right? And if you don't, if you, I can usually spot big chunks of AI generated text that haven't really been edited or revised. I can always tell an AI assisted business plan when it comes across my desk, and so can most of my colleagues, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is pretty visible. But I think in general, much less so than you realize. A lot of video content these days is AI generated, and it can be hard to pick that out. AI generated images can be super realistic. A lot of the tells that were really reliable, even just a few months ago are no longer reliable. It was fingers, they fixed that. It used to be it was the shadows and the light source was inconsistent, and that's fixed on a lot of these image generation models. It is harder and harder to tell. And if it hasn't happened yet that you've, been taken in by an AI image, it probably has and you didn't realize it. They're pretty hard, they're pretty hard to tell. Okay, last one, set up an AI agent and it runs forever without attention. True or false? Yeah, you guys are good. Okay, awesome. You guys walked in with some expertise here. Yeah, false. You're not supposed to do that. It will run forever, but in the same way that if you fall asleep watching YouTube's recommended videos and you wake up and you're watching something totally different that you never would have picked, it's called drift. These processes, if they're let to run forever without oversight and attention, can definitely end up in some weird places. So you should not set up an AI agent and let it run forever, even if I think you theoretically you can do that. It's possible to set that up, but it will go badly for you and it will not result in the outcomes that you're hoping for. Risks and ethical concerns. Any questions on this kind of like what is AI before I move on to my next section, which is risks and ethical concerns? Okay, going once, going twice. Feel free to keep dropping questions in the chat as we go along. And if you're hearing comments, oh, there are questions oh, okay. I'm seeing questions in chat. I'm gonna go ahead and clear this Q&A. Cool, okay. The first big risk I want to talk about is privacy. I think that's the big one that people are concerned about. That's what I hear from small business owners. You know, a lot of these free LLMs that have free tiers, user input as training data. Now you can opt out. I encourage you to opt out if you're concerned about privacy at all. But still, if you're the owner of a business and you want your employees to be using AI tools, you should have a data usage and a data privacy policy. You should be telling your employees what kind of data can and cannot go into the AI tools, what tools are they permitted to use and not use. Can they use their own tool that, their own personal ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, their own personal accounts, so they have to use business accounts. Can they put customer data in? If so, what kinds can they not, right? Um, uh, and generally, if you don't have a closed environment or an environment where your data is protected, and usually that's one that you're paying for, you should not be putting any confidential or person identifying information in there about you or about a customer. And consider paying for access to such an environment because it'll make your prompts better and make your outcomes better. For AI agents, you want to make sure that the agent platforms that you use have strong security compliance guarantees because AI agents get access to your systems. They get API access, they get access, So those you've got to make sure that you're being a savvy consumer and looking at the privacy policies for those tools. Uh, Another risk would be accuracy and quality. Of course, you always want to proofread and review AI generated content. If you're creating an AI written business plan to take to a lender or an investor, you got to be able to speak to every word of what's in that plan. Otherwise, it looks like it's not your business, it's an AI's business. If you're using an AI to draft an RFP, you want to make sure you're reading that RFP top to bottom a couple of times before it goes out. You would be amazed at the kind of stuff I've seen an AI drop into a proposal. And it goes out sometimes because you get used to how good it is and you don't read it as you don't proofread it as carefully. This is a real risk. Um, where possible, ask for sources to be cited and check through to make sure that they're reputable. And essentially be wary of any technical or legal advice that an AI platform is giving you that you could not verify yourself. Right. Remember that in a lot of ways, these are very well trained interns, and would you take an intern's investment advice? Would you take an intern's engineering tips? Would you take an intern's um, architecture knowledge? It's a good starting place, but if something is really critical, if a fact or a recommendation is really critical, you want to find a human expert to verify it before you rely on it too heavily. Um, so that's my accuracy and quality note. And again, a more high quality prompt, a better generated, creates a better output, and that also helps manage that risk of the work output being too visibly AI generated. But um, I always recommend um, keeping a close eye on the content that you produce and reviewing it for quality. Plagiarism and copyright, where possible, you want your AI's tools to cite your sources. You want to make the work your own if you can. Um, and you want to make sure that that if you have AI agents that you've implemented in your business, that they are not going to be doing things like post Philadelphia sports themed content with a trademarked mascot or logo. So then it's an AI agent that took that step, but it's you and your human business that will be on the end of the copyright infringement lawsuit. Um, Finally, customer perceptions. Or no, I've got two more. Customer perceptions. Some customers are absolutely sensitive to AI usage. So depending on your target customer profile, you may want to be aware, especially if your target customer is on the younger side or is in a creative field. A lot of those folks will, have a lot to say if it's clear that you're using AI to generate to generate your work products. AI generated language is easy to spot, especially if it's been minimally edited. It's pretty easy to spot. So edit it and revise accordingly, or just be clear, that AI assisted you in developing this content and make sure that you understand it and feel that it's accurate. Some customers prefer human service. Transparency about AI agents is important for customer trust. And with AI agents, you always want to make sure that there's proper escalation paths to humans for more complex or more critical issues. And comfort levels are very different by customer demographics. So if you're not sure how your customers will respond, it's not the worst idea to make sure to talk to some customers about it, right? Who is that content intended for? If they believe the content was AI generated, will that change their perception of it, or will that change their perception of you or your business? Because, and I think one of the beyond quality, I think one of the real driving forces behind this customer backlash that we're seeing is about the environmental concerns. The training process for large AI models requires a lot of computational power, which translates to a lot of energy. It's often that energy is sourced from non-renewable energy sources, and that contributes to carbon emissions. So for small businesses, if you're concerned about your carbon footprint, it's just true. It's not a fact that you can get around, that adopting AI technology will probably add to your carbon footprint, especially if the service provider that you choose relies on really energy intensive data centers. Um, Additionally, the hardware required for AI can have environmental implications. Manufacturing and disposing of this hardware contributes to resource depletion, electronic waste. Um, so if you're thinking about implementing AI and the environmental concerns are an issue for you, evaluate service providers, not just for cost effectiveness, but for their sustainability practices. Some companies are prioritizing energy efficient data centers or carbon offsetting programs. And if you can, make an informed decision in this area, it can be a good idea. I really like this. I think there are definitely, having smaller and less complex, less computationally intensive AI models that can do simple tasks that are small enough that you can run them on a home PC. I think that's a really exciting development. I think it's a move in the right direction for sure. Um, so great question, David. Thank you for that one. Finally, price increases. As we've seen with new technology over and over and over again, I'm thinking here about YouTube, social media platforms, streaming services, delivery apps. The prices are initially low to capture the market, and then and because those companies have investor capital that fuels their growth, once they can afford to have their prices be low, once we are all reliant on these services, you see prices increase. Now, this is already happening, and I think we can plan for prices to be higher eventually than they are now. So that's one risk to be aware of. The cost of the AI platform today is likely, in most cases, to rise over the next couple of years. So, um, and it may not hit all AI companies or all AI models at the same time. And again, there's a couple of ways of developments. The Meta announcement yesterday, David being one, but also I think what we're seeing out of Anthropic and OpenAI around the Rogue model. There's some really so there may be some regulatory changes coming that also impact the pricing models. Finally, tips and tricks. So we're going to talk about just a brief overview about prompt engineering, and we're right on track for time, which is awesome. So you saw me with a bad prompt and a good prompt earlier, and ChatGPT was a little slow, so we couldn't go too far down that road. But you're going to get a better outcome. If you ask, hey, AI, hey ChatGPT, write me a business plan for my restaurant business. It will write a business plan. It just won't be a very good one because it doesn't know what kind of food, what's your market, how big's the restaurant going to be, what's your market positioning? Are you budget? Are you high end? Um, so, provide enough context to get the result that you want. You can go too far, right? You can give it too much detail and it can get fixated on a small detail that isn't really consequential. So play around with your prompt and consider learning more about shot-based prompting. So zero shot, one shot, multi-shot. That's when you give an example or examples of the output that you're looking for. So, here's 10 of my recent emails, draft an email like this with these parameters. Or here's a couple of different proposals that we've submitted recently. Use these and the attached RFP to draft a proposal for this opportunity. Right. So you give it a couple of examples of what you're looking for, it learns from those examples and produces outputs similar to them. Here is a great question. Is there a faster way to help your agent learn or upload information to help your AI address and process data and information within an industry? So I think the fastest way would be to find an agent that's already built with your industry in mind. There's AI agents that are work in any small business, and there are AI agents that are specific to e-commerce or specific to um, residential services or something. So one thing would be to find one that knows your industry, that has been trained on industry data as well. Another one would be so is your question, Terry, around is there a way to kind of find some preset uh, uh, data policies specific to your industry? Because if so, yeah, there absolutely is. You can, and most of the current large language models would be helpful in kind of asking questions around that and finding some best practices for your industry. Um, I hope I've answered that question, Terry, but if there's more, please feel free to ask a follow-on or two. So that's some basic prompt engineering tips. Um, and I really like the idea with large chunks of text, like a business plan, a marketing plan, a proposal, of drafting in chunks. That makes it easier for me to revise and edit, and I think I get a better quality output when I work in chunks like that. And you can see this prompt example, help me plan my business, as opposed to I'm asking for a specific section of my business plan. That's the kind of the baseline that we go for. Oh, here's another clarification. Yeah, you can upload videos and data into your AI. Absolutely. So you can upload all kinds of data. Like you could upload, um, um, here's uh, here's a link to my website. Here's my most recent, here's our brochure. Here's our org chart. Yeah, and so you can give it a lot of information about yourself, about your business. You can also say, I'm going to give this AI agent access to my file management system, maybe not the finance drive where my taxes are saved, but I'll give it access to, a lot of my templates and my uh, uh, process, my operations manual and, that kind of stuff. You can give it a lot of data, absolutely. Um, and that will, make it more familiar with your business and therefore especially for an agentic platform, more effective. Margaret, zero shot, one shot, multi-shot prompting. So those refer to the number of examples that you give something. So this prompt here, write a business plan, that'd be zero shot prompting. I'm not giving it any examples. Business plans are all over these training data sets. It knows what a business plan looks like. It's going to write one with kind of standard format. But if I wanted to say, write a business plan, or here's a uh, here's a business plan. Here's a pitch deck that won a pitch competition. Write me a pitch deck like this. That would be one shot. I'm giving it one example and I'm asking for an output like that. Multi-shot would be like, here's a copy of 3 different proposals that we've liked recently and the RFP for this next one I want you to draft. Draft an RFP using these examples and the information from the RFP. So that would be an example of multi-shot. I'm giving it multiple examples of what I'm looking for, the multi-shot. Hope that answers the question. Um, great question so far, all of you. Please keep them coming. Okay. Next tip, know your platform. You're paying for a closed environment. How up to date is the training data? Can it cite sources? What is your so I really like the idea. Somebody asked this earlier, are different platforms better for different things? Every time an AI platform updates their model, that answer changes. So my recommendation to you is find user forums online where people are complaining and excited and sharing, their feedback on given platforms. People are chatting all about these, things you do and don't like about Grok or Gemini or Claude. Find what the chatter is for those given platforms in certain areas. And that might be a kind of the best way to find that kind of answer out. Because anything I say right now could be completely different in 3 weeks or a month when the next AI model was up. Finally, and this doesn't really apply to agentic AI, but keep a human in the loop. So let the AI do your work, not your thinking, wherever possible. For AI created content, especially content that created using zero shot prompting, make sure you're reviewing it thoroughly for tone, for accuracy, for quality. For automated tasks, keep those quality controls calibrated to where they need to be. Make sure that that outliers are escalated for a human to read and review. And if you've got an automated process that's optimized for a specific variable, keep an eye on drift. So your AI model is not smart enough to change course if appropriate. If you're optimizing for engagement on your social media AI agent and you're letting that social media agent just post, it could end up, what gets you the most engagement on your social media platform might not be the thing that best represents your brand. With no other parameters, an AI agent optimizing for engagement might say some really scandalous stuff because it'll get a lot of attention. So, keep an eye on on your robot interns, and make sure that you're occasionally checking in on those AI agents that are deployed to make sure that they're still meeting the quality standards that you have. My chunk it out approach, I already gave you that. This is less relevant for agents, but remember that AI is optimized, generative AI is optimized to produce something that looks right because they can't really verify is right. They can only verify looks right. Does it match what our training data says this should look like? It's easier for looks right and is right to be the same if you work in those small chunks on bigger documents. And I like the idea of stacking platforms. We talked about this a little bit earlier. If you're having trouble getting, I have a lot of thoughts on that question, Jasmine, and I'm going to take it in 1 second. But yeah, a couple of examples of how to stack platforms. We talked about a few of these earlier. And I'm going to move forward. Quick. Okay, so question break. Jasmine, I have a lot of thoughts on deciding which platform to pay for. And to be honest, I always start to answer this question by asking you what your business's strategic goals are and what workflows in your business are most related to those strategic goals. Within those workflows, where are there opportunities to automate or make tasks more efficient? That should guide where you spend your first AI dollar. It should be on a platform that has the greatest impact on whatever the business goal is that is most important to you. So, and that may be different than, than what you expect. I don't recommend making that decision based on, I heard an ad for a cool AI platform and I want to try it. It should be driven by your own business needs and your strategic goals first. So if you want to talk about which platform you should pay for first, a great first step would be to sit down and talk to an SBDC business consultant. If you don't have a strategic plan or strategic goals set, start there. And then from there, you can work backwards. And I have a great AI implementation workbook that we're going to share that can walk you through that process a little bit and help you create an action plan for your business. Yeah. Any other questions? Nothing? All right. You've been asking as we go along, which I really appreciate. Um, okay. So for the next one, I have a little bit of a choose your own adventure. I'm gonna do another kind of a demo, but I want it to be a little bit more involved. And I have two options. I could show you what it looks like to give an AI a role and how that changes the quality of the output. Or we could I could show you how to use AI to brainstorm, which I do a fair amount when I'm kind of stuck on an idea. Or I could show you how to use AI to revise existing content that exists on your website. Or we could walk through revising a business plan. Does any of that sound most appealing? Loudest voice, I'll get it. Anybody want to shout into the chat? Which of those sound most interesting? Again, use AI to write a business plan. I'll show you kind of a quick step there. Brainstorming exercise or how to revise existing content. Okay. Lori, I love this question. I'll take this before we go. And I've got a couple of folks saying brainstorm, so we're going to do that. Lori, the question is, I've used AI to create thumbnails for my YouTube channels, but sometimes it takes my photos and changes one thing I wanted to keep the same. How do you prompt it to tell it keep? So in your prompt, you would say, here's a photo, edit it, make the background this, keep all other details the same, or keep eye color and change nothing else. Like you can be explicit about change nothing else except this thing I asked you to change. And if you're not explicit about that, it might actually, change that. Okay, so I think we have enough time to do a couple of exercises. And I'm gonna do, it sounds like I'm gonna start with the brainstorming demo first. So I'm gonna go back to ChatGPT. Let's see if chat's gonna make this gonna work for me. Oh, it's a good question. Is it worth it to pay for the AI platforms that have free versions? Often it is. Often you get a better model, a faster model, or a closed environment when you pay for it. So if you find yourself using an AI platform a lot and you're like, not super pleased with the quality of what you're getting, paying for that platform is going to give you a better quality. But if you're getting what you need out of the free version and you're not using it for anything particularly sensitive and you're not worried about, your data being used as training data, or you've got that option toggled off, do it. I use the free version in a couple of the platforms I use in my personal life. For my work, I do. I use professionally in my client work, I always use the paid versions. All right. I love this. Revise a business plan, make it clearer and less wordy. All right. Let's do this brainstorming demo first, because I think that's the one I hear a lot of people looking for. So I'm gonna give this a specific prompt. I've got one ready to go. So I'm gonna say, okay, I own a small dog grooming business in a busy neighborhood. The challenge I'm facing is people book appointments, but then there's a lot of late no-shows or cancellations, and it wastes time and costs money. How can I reduce this? So I'm not saying, hey, ChatGPT, fix this for me. I'm saying, I know I need to fix this, but I'm stumped. How do I fix it? So small booking deposit, a good dog perk for reliable customers, use a confirmation that requires an action, um, build a last minute pub list so you can fill those slots when they open last minute. So, um, or make repeat appointments the default. These are all, I think, really good ideas. Let's say you like that confirmation text and you want to say, okay, give me, I like that. I'm going to pick one idea to drill down on. So let's say I like this confirmation that requires an action. That's great. Draft me a sample text. And if you use a platform that allows you to write, that allows you to send confirmation messages for your scheduling, and most of them do, and they have different, you can modify these fields to align with whatever that system needs you to look for. Um, and let's say I like this idea, but I also like this whole, deposit, reply to confirmation and standby list. And I want it to give me a workflow that maps this all out. And the tone that we're trying to strike in every one of these communications is, we're excited to care for your dog. We've reserved this time specifically for you. And that doesn't sound punitive or harsh, but it is a reminder, please respect our time, right? Um, uh, what did they call it? That last minute. I like that last minute idea. That was really cool. Last minute pub list. And then maybe I'll give it some ideas. I don't know what what the dog, Calendly for scheduling, constant back for email lists. Do not currently in a CRM. So I want to do this, but here are the systems I use. How will I do this? And here's some ideas for how to actually implement this. And don't automatically offer time off, but offer an add-on that doesn't take a lot of time, that still feels valuable to your customers, of that perk to incentivize people to actually take those last minute appointments. And how do you know if it's working? Whenever we implement a new system, we always want to make sure that we're tracking if we're getting the results that we want. So it's including that. How are we going to track it? And here we go. The metric you care about most isn't list size. How big is that last minute customer list? It's how much of that cancellation revenue are we recovering every month? That's what tells you if this workflow is successful or not. So that's how I would use ChatGPT to brainstorm. So I ask it a general question, giving it enough context to answer me. And I ask it for not just one idea, but a 5 creative ideas, 10 creative ideas. Give me some options to think through. And then I drill down deeper into one. And might ask it to work on something. And then maybe I ask it for another thing. And then maybe I say, actually, this is how my business works. Here are the platforms I'm on. How this worked for me. Again, giving it more specific context. I'm going to run one more demo. And people seem really excited about the idea of a business plan, right? So let's do that. Oh, we're revising things to make them less wordy. Hang on, let me find a really wordy slide from the deck that you all just saw. And ask it to revise that to make that less wordy. Okay, here's one. I'm gonna pick I'm gonna pick on myself. I'm gonna pick a slide that I thought was a little bit too wordy, and I'm gonna ask it to make it less wordy. So I've got this human in the loop slide. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna open a new chat I don't want it to remember anything I did before. Revise the text of this slide to make it more readable and concise. Here's the text. And that's a little shorter, a little bit more readable. Use text features like bold and underline to make it just um I have lots of examples of doing this with people's real business plans, but confidentiality policies. I'm not going to show you somebody else's business plan. How about we do a new one though? I think we have enough time for one more. Draft a, let's see, draft a business plan for my jewelry business. I am seeking a loan of 20,000 to support an expansion to a location. Let me find all that text I had around what kind of business, what kind of jewelry store I am. Let me see. Where did I drop all that text? Me operate out of a shared space in C Avenue and seeking home storefront in Houston. So it's going to give me a very long business plan. I've given it no business name. I've given it no branding, no logo, no revenue numbers, no real financials. And so there's gonna be some big missing pieces in this business plan. And if I gave it, here's my most recent income statement, profit and loss and financials, that would probably be a little better. If I gave it a use of funds, I said I just want $20,000. I didn't say what for. That would improve this plan as well. But you can see it's done a decent job here of creating a business plan. It's even guessed what I would use the funds for. Um, but we're going to give it, and I would say this is a good starting point. This is enough for me to dive in on my own as a human, polish, review. I might even say, here's some more information about the use of funds, revise accordingly, or here's the specific block that location is going to be on, revise accordingly. So that's just a little bit of the demo. Another one for those of you that manage employees that I really like. And I promise I'll move on to Q&A. Let's say I need to write a difficult email to an employee. It's not bad, right? But let me see what happens if I give it a better prompt. You, ChatGPT, you business owner, the AI model are an HR consultant, and I have I need to address a pattern, and I'm specific. That employee's been late 6 times to work in the past month. I want to address this professionally with empathy, but also make it clear that this really needs to change. Draft an email that acknowledges the pattern, ask if there's an underlying issue, explains how functionality matters, and proposes next steps. And I'm going to get a better quality email out of this, I hope. Now let's say I like this email, but it's way too long. This email is too long. Reduce by at least a third. Now it's shorter, a little more readable, but you didn't lose the main kind of core of it. All right, I'll stop my demo and move back to my slide deck. But I'm curious for you all to share in the chat. What do you think you noticed in that demo? I'll ask a more specific question. Do you think a longer prompt is always better? I think you saw that last one. I gave it maybe a little bit too much, right? So I think a longer prompt in general can be better. It's more expensive if you're paying for your own AI model. If you're paying for your own usage, with certain, Claude is a pay per token platform. So a longer prompt means a more expensive response. More detailed is better. I think precise. I like that language, David. Precise prompt is better. So I've even seen structures where organize your prompt with like output that I'm looking for, who I am, your role, and you kind of fill in those sections. Multiple revisions, I think, is helpful to get what you want. I like it. And some AI models are more creative than others. So a shorter prompt may be better if you're looking for brainstorming. So that first prompt about the dog walking with a scheduling platform, that was a relatively concise prompt. Um, yeah, so I think that's a good discussion. A long prompt can be, a more detailed prompt can need to be long in certain cases, but it's not the length, it's the level of detail. And I gave it, I think, with that email to a difficult employee prompt. I think I gave it maybe a little bit too much detail. Like, it wrote me like a 6 paragraph email. And now I know my employee's not going to read a 6 paragraph email. I barely read a 6 paragraph email myself. So, a longer prompt could get you a longer output, which may not always be what you're looking for. Uh, any other kinds of prompts that you might use? What other ways could you use? These are just a few of these cases that I talked about. Any others that have occurred to you watching me do those kinds of demos? All right. I like it. I like large language models a lot for yeah, tell it how many words you want is a good one. I want a 300 word response to this, or I want a 1 paragraph bio or something. Yeah, giving it a length it can be a really useful element of that prompt. I think the more specific you are about what kind of output you're looking for, the likelier you are to get the output that you want. Um, let's see. I Sure, using it to help revise your website. Okay, so I'm gonna pick on, again, I'm pick on myself. I go to the Temple SBDC website. I'll give you an example there. All right, so I'm here on ChatGPT. It's just the one I'm using. Oh, maybe not. Let's try again. All right. And I'm gonna say attached is the uh here is a link to my organization's website review the text and give me feedback. And maybe I could ask for more specific feedback. Uh, Say, okay, what's not working here? Uh, and I'll go again. I'm going to do my own website. I'm not going to pick on any small businesses website. So let me pull up my website. And I'm always going to ask if I want critical feedback, I'm going to ask for critical feedback. Otherwise, it's going to tell me how great my website is. Tell me what's not working. If I just tell me, hey, here's my website, tell me what you think. A lot of times it's going to say, what a beautiful website. I love the branding. So I want to be clear. I'm looking for critical feedback. Tell me what is wrong. Okay, so this is some good feedback for me to consider now. I'm not part of our marketing team, but there's some nice feedback there for me. If I liked one of these ideas, I might say, okay, give me um, help. I might say, help me revise, one section. I might say, this um, consulting services page. Um, I might say, here's a specific page. Help me revise it. Yeah. Asking for what's wrong is the difference. If you just say, here's my website, tell me what you think, it's gonna tell you how great you are. Yeah, you can do that with YouTube channel. Here's one thing I do a lot. Draft a prompt to help a business owner get critical feedback about their YouTube channel. They use ChatGPT and Claude. I'm just guessing on what you use, right? Um, Nice long prompt. And I could say this is too long. I could say give me a shorter prompt. But this is the prompt it's given me to start with. So this is another example of stacking platforms. I think that's a good idea. I could use ChatGPT to ask for this feedback. Help me ask you for what I need. This is an important one. If you cannot directly access or analyze part of YouTube channel, tell me rather than guessing. Otherwise, it won't tell you. It'll just guess. So again, remember that these are optimized for, at the end of the day, all of these tools, these large language models and generative AI platforms that are, commercialized for public use are designed to keep you using them. So they're going to tell you nice things about yourself and about, if you say my business, it's going to tell you nice things about your business. If you want critical feedback, if you want it to tell you what's wrong, what's broken, what's not working, you got to ask specifically for critical feedback or tell them, hey, you're a skeptic about this, tell me your position. So that's an important one. And I'm going to switch over, and I'd love to know, we're kind of coming to the end here. Here were our objectives for today. I hope we've achieved that. I hope you feel like we achieved our objectives. We wanted to understand what powers generative AI. We wanted to identify risks around AI usage and how to manage them. We wanted to understand agentic AI, which is the emerging technology that's hitting us right now, and when an autonomous workflow can make sense for your business and when maybe it doesn't. I wanted to make sure that you leave with at least one viable use case for your business. If you're struggling to think of what that viable use case might be, here's a business model canvas. It's a great tool for operations management and strategic planning. Mapping out your business on a business model canvas may help you identify areas where either there's rote work that can be automated, content creation, which could be AI assisted, or data generated, which could be AI analyzed. If you're still thinking about if you're still not sure where to get the most bang for your AI spend, I would really encourage you to check out the AI implementation workbook that we're going to send as part of this session, or check out the most recent webinar that I did on AI implementation called Strategy First, and that's on our YouTube channel. I'm going to now take some questions, starting with Nancy's question. How secure is your personal information when using AI? Very solid question. It depends on the platform. If you're using the freemium tier of some of these most common platforms, by default, any information you share in a prompt is being used to train those platforms. That's the default setting. And so that's not particularly secure. If you're paying for a closed environment, if you're, or if you've toggled off that training data, it depends on the privacy and confidentiality policies of these platforms. And certainly some of them prioritize security more heavily than others, but theoretically, if that platform is closed, your personal information should be secure. Now, I think every business owner is going to need to make their own decisions around sharing, sensitive customer information and financial data. We have a policy, for instance, here at the SBDC that we don't put, I would never put a client's tax returns into an AI model. I might, take sections of that. I might take pieces of that that are anonymized and use them. I'm looking for some analysis. But that's one of the kind of lines in the sand that we've drawn as a network, that we don't put anything highly confidential into an AI model without anonymizing it in some way. Um, so let's say you have a data set that is, a big CSV file with a bunch of customer data. You can anonymize that data set by taking out, by taking out the customer name and using a customer ID number instead. And then you can say, okay, using this anonymized data set, identify my most lucrative customers or my most profitable customers, or my most engaged customers. And it'll give you, the output won't be customer names, but it'll be customer ID numbers, which you can then go back to your original CSV file and find the answers there. Would be one way to kind of use an AI model while anonymizing the data set. Now, simpler probably to do that exercise in a closed environment where that data set can be shared explicitly. But I think it's still a place where reasonable people can disagree on where that line is. So you've got to make that decision, I think, for yourself. And in some cases, if you have a healthcare business, those are decisions that HIPAA is making for you as well. Um, but yeah, solid question. Any other questions? All right, you may notice that there's a survey link in the chat. We would love if you would take a look at that survey. It's just a few questions long. It should take you, less than a minute to complete. We'd love to know how we did. And check out our upcoming webinars on that link. That'll take you to our webinar calendar. You can see upcoming sessions that we've got in the next few months. I'm here for questions. If you've got any more of them, I'm happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, so I'll hang out for another couple minutes while you all think of any questions you'd like to ask. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday morning at 8:30 to talk about AI for your small business. Thanks. Appreciate the nice words. Take a second to fill out that survey if you can. Especially those of you that are saying thank you and seem to enjoy it. All right, awesome. Well, I'll stop my screen sharing. Sounds like we're about ready to wrap up. Appreciate it, everybody. Add the link to the survey. The survey is in the chat. Here it is again. The link for the Jerry, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what training you're talking about. The link for which training? The links for the survey and for our upcoming webinar are both in the chat, and you can find them there if you're looking for them. There will also be, sure, I can find that. Let's see, that was in July. And the YouTube link, I've got it here. It's right here. I think that's the right YouTube link. I should probably open it first to make sure. Yeah, that's there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Hope to see you at an upcoming SBDC event or maybe in a one-on-one consulting meeting. Have a great rest of your week.